Wiener Schnitzel, the iconic dish of Vienna. Such a simple thing and so good. I'm going to show you how to do schnitzels with various meats and various fats. This is the kind of home frying that I can really get behind because it requires very little oil. Schnitzel is just the German term for any very thin cut of meat that's been breaded and fried, but Wiener Schnitzel is veal. It can't be anything else. I've got 2 veal scallopini here, probably the most common way veal is sold in the US, very thin slices, and we're going to make them even thinner. A layer of plastic wrap on top, and I will use my smooth meat mallet to pound these as flat as possible without tearing them apart. You might feel that eating a juvenile animal is particularly cruel, and you could certainly argue that. However, it is also true that the industry here in the US and many other countries has phased out the practice of keeping calves confined to crates, just FYI. All right, I am 100% on team season the meat, not the breading. I would have no idea how much salt to put into a pile of flour, but I can look at a piece of meat and judge how much salt I will want on it. Just remember it's really thin. You're not seasoning an inch-thick steak here. Go easy. Schnitzel is so thin that you absolutely cannot tell in the end whether the seasoning goes all the way through the breading or if it just went on the meat. I would challenge you to a blind taste test if you disagree. Into some plain flour, and everything here should be as light and thin as possible. Knock off any excess. Now we need an egg. Hey, it's a double yolker. I'm gonna save that for breakfast. 1 egg is more than enough, and I'll just beat that smooth in the plate with a fork. In goes the meat, and again, get off any excess. Now, breadcrumbs. You can make your own breadcrumbs from stale bread, which is, of course, the traditional way. I left this bread out overnight, and then I'll throw it in my food processor. You ever wonder why people hold on to the food processor as it goes? Because if you don't, it might gradually walk off the counter. All right, I've been blitzing those for like 5 minutes, and they are not fine enough, not for schnitzel. Fact is, a lot of the bread that you buy these days, at least where I live, is made with dough conditioners that delay staling. And as a result, this bread just isn't dry or hard enough yet to make fine breadcrumbs. You could certainly just buy some breadcrumbs. These are very fine and bone dry. Another option to consider is Japanese breadcrumbs, panko. Obviously not traditional for schnitzel, but nothing else is remotely as crispy as panko. The crumbs are way too big and jagged for something this delicate, but you can grind them up in the food processor and make them fine. I'll show you 1 piece in the regular store-bought breadcrumbs and 1 piece in the blitzed panko. The key here is to not press the meat into the breadcrumbs. Light, light, light. Just let whatever wants to stick, stick. And we'll bring these immediately over to our hot clarified butter, certainly one of the traditional fats for this. You can buy it, but I'll show you how I made this. 1/2 pound or 1/4 kilo of butter into a little saucepan, and then turn the heat on like medium-low. Just let it melt and then boil for a long time. This took almost half an hour. The milk proteins rise to the top while the sugars and water sink to the bottom. When the bubbling really slows down, you know most of the water is gone, and I think that's where the traditional Germanic clarified butter, butterschmaltz, usually stops. Indian ghee goes the extra step of letting this brown a little bit, and I think I did brown this a little, but that's fine. If you just wanted to buy a jar of ghee, that'd work too. I've got a strainer with a paper towel in it, and I'm just going to strain the butter through. For good measure, I'm going to strain it again on the way into my big 12-inch fry pan. If there's any milk solids still in the butter, they will burn terribly when we fry our schnitzel. But that is perfect right there. Pure butter fat, no protein or sugar that would burn, and no water that would burst and pop at the medium-high heat that I'm using. With this kind of thing, I think the easiest way to test the temperature is to dip your meat's toes into the oil. If it sizzles a lot, you're good to drop the rest in. So they say the schnitzel should be swimming in the fat, meaning there's enough fat in the pan that the meat is floating above the metal surface, but not so much fat that the meat is submerged. That would be deep frying. I think I've got a hair too much fat in this pan. One way I've found myself parting with tradition on this is I like to flip the schnitzels multiple times as they cook, basically constant flipping, just like the technique of constantly flipping steak. I think it works here for the same reasons. It helps things cook a little more evenly, and it stops you from being surprised. Like, I almost burned those dark spots where the big one touched the bottom of the pan, and I definitely would have burned it if I'd waited to flip until halfway through the cooking. You flip often, there's no surprises. You can assess and adjust the heat, move things to a cooler part of the pan, etc. With a piece of meat this thin, you can be virtually guaranteed that the inside will be done by the time the outside looks done. Out these come to a rack or some paper towels to drain and rest. Normal breadcrumbs are on the right, and boy, can you tell. You can already see the panko crumbs on the left are crispier. On the plate goes my favorite of the traditional sides for schnitzel, cucumber salad. Also traditional would be fries or potato salad, but I don't need to be having carbs with my carb-encrusted protein. Plus, I freaking love cucumber salad. I've got an English English cucumber here. In the US, this variety comes wrapped in plastic because the skins have not been waxed. That makes them good to eat without peeling. And you just slice them as thin as you can. Any cucumber is fine, but English cucumbers have this dense texture that works really well for a thin sliced salad. Into a bowl those go. Not everybody likes onion in this. I definitely do. About half a red onion for that much cucumber, and I'm going to cut it once down the middle before slicing thin. This will give me quarter rounds, a manageable size for a salad. In those go. And then a whole bunch of fresh dill. You could get away with dried dill, but you'd want to use a lot less. Then I'm just eyeballing equal quantities of white vinegar and any neutral oil for the dressing. You can always add more later, pepper, a pinch of salt, and then the traditional big pinch of sugar. Stir that around, and you want to make that hours before you eat, maybe the day before. It'll basically pickle a little bit in the fridge. A ton of moisture will come out of the veg, and then you can give it a stir, taste it, and see if you want to add more vinegar or anything else. Delicious salad. And there's our panko Weiner Schnitzel. I like some fresh parsley on top, and then the sauce, an ample squeeze of fresh lemon. I would call that essential. That is the sauce. Really crispy and tasty. You might be thinking, that's so bland. Where's the seasoning? Well, with something this simple, you can really taste the core elements shining through. The taste of the clarified butter is really strong. To me, it's the dominant flavor here. How does that other cutlet stack up? The one with the quote-unquote normal breadcrumbs? It's good, but it's not as crispy. Now, I'm sure a 9th degree Schnitzel master could make it crispy. They've got all kinds of tricks. There's this thing where they shake the pan really aggressively to make the breading separate partially from the meat, causing it to fry into something like a phyllo shell. That's cool, but I am not a 9th degree Schnitzel master, and if you aren't either, I highly recommend panko that you've blitzed into a fine powder. It's just foolproof, crispy every time. Could this work with beef instead of veal? Well, yeah, German and Austrian immigrants in Texas made it with beef, and that became chicken fried steak, one of the great American dishes. But let's try making it with pork now. That'd be Schweinenschnitzel. I've got 2 boneless pork loin chops, and I'm going to butterfly them. Just cut them to make them half their original thickness. Stop right before you go all the way through and open it up like a book. Plastic wrap on top. I hate wasting it, but from a food safety perspective, this is probably the practice I should be advocating. It just prevents bacteria-laden juice from splattering around your kitchen. Look how big those suckers are. I'll season them as before. Flour, egg, breadcrumbs. Yes, that's the fine panko. And let's reach for another traditional schnitzel fat, lard. A few big spoonfuls into a hot pan. It melts right away. Medium-high heat. Dip the pork's toes in. Sure seems hot enough. And again, I'll flip it a few times. When she's outwardly done, she's done. Time to drain and cool. Here's another common version of that cucumber salad. This is the creamy version. It's exactly the same, except instead of oil and vinegar dressing, it's vinegar and sour cream. You can just eyeball it, make it as creamy as you want it. Let it sit in the fridge for a long time before tasting and adding more vinegar or anything else it needs. Check out the size of that cutlet. Back where I used to live in Indiana, they would put a comically too small for the job hamburger bun on that with some mustard, onions, and pickles. That's another German-descended classic they call a tenderloin sandwich, even though it's usually made with loin, not tenderloin. Anyway, this is great, though don't use the lard unless you like for your pig to really taste like pig, which this definitely does. And I think I like that creamy version of the salad almost as much as the other one. Okay, last thing, let's make a chicken schnitzel. The chicken breasts that I get at the store are so huge that I'm not even going to bother butterflying this. I'm just cutting all the way through. That half is easily one portion on its own. I'll pound it out. You could use a rolling pin or a heavy saucepan for this, but be prepared that chicken tends to shred and break apart more when pounded out, so be careful. Season that and dust it in the flour, and if you wanted to kick up the flavor a bit, I quite like a big spoonful of mustard mixed in with the egg. No idea if that's traditional, but it's real tasty. And we can fry this one in good old vegetable oil. Totally fine to use a neutral frying oil for any schnitzel. Dip the meat's toes in. Oops, that's not hot enough. Try again. Still not hot enough. And there we go. The mustard is delicious, but be aware that it will contribute to uneven coloring on the crust. She's crispy, she's brown, she's done. And if she's still a little raw in the center, she'll probably finish cooking via carryover during resting. That mustard in the breading really makes this come alive. By the way, I would be conservative with my salt on these cutlets because you can always salt them some more at the table, and I actually prefer that. I like that heterogeneity.
I suppose that whole heterogeneous seasoning thing is becoming one of my catchphrases, along with this one. You know what this means? Sure you do. It's our little secret code. That's what makes it fun. And yes, it is now on a t-shirt, and yes, you can now buy it for a very limited time. We will take pre-orders on this for the next 14 days, 2 weeks from the day this video goes live. Working with a company called Bonfire. It took me a while to find the right company to work with. I like these folks. Bonfire will take your pre-orders for the next 2 weeks, and at the end of that, we'll see how many we've got, then we'll print the shirts and then send them out to you. The cost is $20 plus shipping and tax, which is obviously going to depend a lot on where you live. It's a nice high quality soft shirt, and we opted for the screen printing instead of the laser printing. So this looks really good and it's going to last a long time. Nothing fancy here. There's no color options. It's unisex. I'm wearing a medium right now. Lauren is wearing an extra small. And you want to see what's on the back? Absolutely nothing is on the back. There's no like go to adamragusia.com or youtube.com/aragusia. No identifying marks or explanatory language whatsoever. Just our little secret code. You want a t-shirt? Do your pre-order in the next 2 weeks. The link is down in the description. Now go make some schnitzel.